Yo, good evening, folks. Hope you're well. It's Monday night, so that must mean it's Airfix and chill. Got a bit of a large panel tonight. We've got Jim, we've got Luke, we've got Ben, we've got Zinzan, we've got John, and we've got Barry. Nice to see you all. Thanks for joining. I wish we have these debates. I mentioned a topic before we start, and some really good points are raised. So I'll crack on first, but we'll go into a couple of things during this tonight. You've got the Jadland build that's going on, and we'll play the model shows rest of the year video as well. So if you want to go, but I went to a model show this Sunday, Yova model show, cracking model show it was. If you want to go have a look at it, I think Alex has got a video out on it. I saw him there filming, so I didn't bother. I thought, well, there's no point both of us doing it. So he was out there filming. Whilst I was with the ISCA Scale Model Club, and we had a VJ display. So we did a group build of VJ centered builds.
What display?
Pardon?
A what display?
A VJ display.
Oh, okay. I was just checking out.
Sorry, it's my accent. Victory in Japan. Well, it's the anniversary, isn't it? And so we decided as a club to build models that were related to the end of World War II, basically, VJ Day. And that was our last time we were going to display that. So we're going to be preparing for next year. But it's always good to have a theme at some of these model shows and have a theme of builds. I was also there selling some old kits that I had because I'm trying to slim down. So I went there for what do you call it? Enterprise sort of vibes, like to get some money back. But anyway, so I love walking around model shows. Model shows really do make it for me with being a scale modeler. And I know we've discussed about pilots in planes before, but as I was walking around, I noticed that again, and it's been shared a few times. I remember, I think it was on one of the Airfix and chills. I think one of the Airfix boys, I think it was Luke at the time, before he went to Revell, said that when they walk around scale model shows, they don't see pilots in their seats. But this time, I thought as I was looking around, I was seeing figures on nearly every model, but not necessarily as a pilot. There would be grounds crew around the model. Tanks not necessarily have a tank commander in it, but there will be a soldier or two around the tank engineer. The only time I didn't see a figure in a model is if it was a car or a lorry. So I was wondering, have we kind of changed our view on figures? I know that when Airfix started releasing kits without a pilot, even though the plane can be wheels up or wheels down, there's no point in having it wheels up if you didn't have a pilot. So I saw that argument, but then again, the argument of why don't Airfix put stands in like they used to? You know, you have wings up. Where's the stand? Where's the pilot? And it did come as a thing. And Revell, I think some of their planes were coming out without pilots. Italy, they released kits without pilots. And then you got on the other side of it, when there's a tank, people were bemoaning that when Tamiya released that M36 Jackson this year, that the one I built, it came with a figure, but not a tank commander. Only came with one figure when, I believe, if I'm right, a lot of Tamiya kits came with 2 or 3 figures, didn't it? Now you only get one, and that isn't even on the tank. It stands beside the tank. So I thought we'll have a bit of a talk about it, really, and see what people's thoughts are. I thought Luke and Jim were brilliant before we started. I wish we were talking from then. But you said what you were saying, Luke, about why people insist on putting a figure near a model. So I thought you had some really good insight into that. And then I'll follow on with and you can say, Jim, what you were saying about the figures as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think in armor, and I'm talking specifically about sort of competition type builds. So there are rules from IPMS UK and what constitutes an armor piece, an aircraft, vignette, a diorama, and it's all kind of centered around how many figures you would have on that particular end. And that will differentiate what is a diorama, what is a vignette, etc., etc. But for armor, it's been a thing for a long time where you would put one or two figures either on, in, or next to a piece of armor to give that vehicle a sense of scale, of how big or small that particular vehicle is. Because without a point of reference, a human, pretty much, next to it, it's very, very difficult to appreciate how big or small that particular vehicle is. I mean, you look at something like a Challenger 2 in any scale, that's a big vehicle. But the only way you're going to portray how big it is to put a human figure next to it so that people's brains start to appreciate the size of that vehicle. So it's been a thing with armor for a long, long time. Now, most aircraft modelers, from what I know, and I'm not an aircraft modeler really, they generally build an aircraft wheels down. It's quite unusual to see an aircraft wheels up in flight. That doesn't really happen very often, certainly in the UK.
Yeah.
So therefore, if you want to portray the scale of that particular aircraft, it would be quite unusual, would it not? And I stand to be corrected, for an aircraft to be sat completely stationary with a pilot in it, open canopy, you know, and all the stuff where you can really demonstrate that model. Lots of people put remove before flight tags on them, but they wouldn't be on it if the pilot was in it because it's getting ready to take off, whatever it may be. So what they will do is they'll put a ground crew figure next to it, because then it gives the sense of scale and it kind of frames it in a more appropriate way than a pilot sat in it, or even a pilot next to it, walking towards the aircraft, walking away, whatever it may be. And I think that's definitely a change that we've seen over the last 2, 3, 4 years, where it's becoming more prevalent. And I think one of the reasons that it is becoming more prevalent in aircraft modeling is the quality of the figures.
Yes.
Because with the advent of 3D printing, the quality of the figure is so much better than what you would get, you know, the old Airfix pilot that was pretty standard across all their range.
Yeah.
It's much better quality because despite what anyone says, and I'm only talking about personal experience, the better quality the figure, the easier it is to paint.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And painting figures is difficult. To paint them to a reasonable standard. So you could build the best 1/48 scale Spitfire. It could be a phenomenal build. But if you're not any good at figures, you put a ground crew figure next to it that is substandard, then everyone's going to assume that the aircraft is substandard, because as humans, we interact with each other. So the first focus when someone looks at it is going to be the figure. And the first focus on the figure is going to be the face. And the first focus on the face is going to be the eyes. Because that's how we interact as humans. So it's natural. And it would take a lot of effort for someone to bypass the face, bypass the figure, to concentrate their viewing on the aircraft itself. And I think that's why a lot of people avoid putting figures next to it, because they don't want to take away from the build itself. But I think it's becoming more prevalent because the figures are better quality.
Yeah.
So they're easier to paint a decent standard.
I think that's pretty much sums up my thoughts on it. I don't particularly like painting figures, but I'm thinking that in the future I'm going to have to work a bit harder at painting these, because I think it's becoming standard when you see displays if they, most vehicles now we don't just build the model and put it on the table. We now build a base for it, and getting to a point where you can build bases. The next stage up is to have either a figure, whether it's grounds crew, a tank commander around a tank. There was a Formula One car there which had an engineer looking over it, but there was no actual driver in it. So I think it was easier to buy the figure of an engineer than it was to get, a racing car driver figure. I think that's why.
Or even going back to the aircraft side of things. So if you're putting a driver in a Formula One car, generally the driver only gets into it when they're ready to drive.
Ready to drive, yeah.
The same as a pilot will only get into an aircraft when they're ready to fly or they've just landed. So if the modeler on an F1 car, for example, wants to show off engine detail and remove some of the panels to show some of the detail, remove a wheel to show the brake detail, whatever it may be, it would be counterintuitive to put a driver in it because the driver's not going to sit in it with one of the wheels off.
No,
but an engineer is going to be looking over that car.
Yeah.
So also an engineer might be sitting in it as well. So you could have an engineer sitting in it.
You could, but to the average Joe that's going to be looking at that model that doesn't understand the intricacies of engineering on Formula One vehicles, it would make more sense visually to have an engineer looking over the engine or looking over a brake disc, rather than sat in it testing it. Unless you're very, very specific and maybe put some text next to it.
This is storytelling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, that's why when somebody asked me about the Jackson, why didn't I put the figure next to it, and why didn't Tamiya put a tank commander in the inside? I said because it's an open turret. I think they made a choice not to have a figure in it, so you can see inside. So you have the same thought pattern as what Phil says, that they don't like to put a pilot in a plane in the seat because it hides a lot of the detail in the cockpit. So I think Tamiya only gave you that figure standing beside that tank because they wanted you to, and they did put a lot of detail in the inside of that open turret. They've even done the bags. Are you building it now? Are you, John, or are you doing that one? Yeah.
This is exactly what you guys are talking about. This is how I display my models once I'm done with them.
Yeah.
And especially this one, you really can't put anything in there.
No.
No.
But I put a figure here, and I just painted all black just so that it's not that distracting, and it's purely for scale, just to let you know. Because if you saw this without a figure, you'd really, I don't know, not really, unless you watched Allo, have any idea sort of how big this thing is, right?
So is that the Tamiya 222 or 223?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
So it's interesting how different modelers approach the same build. So I've built that. I don't have it to hand, it's a damage box, but I've done a very similar thing. However, the figure, I put a seated figure sitting on the edge of the turret.
Did you? Yeah.
So it shows the scale of the vehicle, but the crew aren't in it. So you can still see all the detail within the turret, but he's sat on the edge of the turret because it's very likely that you would see a crew member sat on the edge of the turret while the vehicle's stationed.
And I think that's a very important thing there, Luke, and I think Zinzam was sort of hinting at it, are you telling a story or are you telling a subject? Because you sound like you'll sound like you're selling a story there by having someone sitting on the vehicle, where John is more displaying it as the subject and giving a person for reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's sort of the distinction.
Particular vehicle, I have used that in a diorama, so it's on top of a trench network with some German officers and stuff in the trench. But you could display the vehicle on its own, tank on a plan because it's nice. with the figure sat on the turret. So it's interesting to see the different approach to achieve the same thing, to show the scale of the vehicle. And that's what makes the hobby so interesting, because everyone will approach it in a different way.
We're all different. Yeah.
I mean, it's interesting that what John Alec does with that little figure. Now, this leads me to an aspect of sculpture that one might want to consider when doing diorama. And I think the two things are the same, is that, yes, you can have a figure next to your piece of kit, you know, Gruber's little tank, fantastic. But you can have the figure actually gesticulating to a point that's outside the formalized boundaries of that particular piece.
Yeah.
And it leads to imagination. Now, this is the whole beauty of things like figures. And it's an area of specialism that we have here in two ways. One, it's bloody hard to paint them. I don't do it. I mean, whatever figure I tried to paint, I'd end up with something that looks like an old fucking dustbin with a bicycle on top of it. It would be hopeless. And you know, the second thing is that there are now companies, and we saw one last week, who are specializing in figures. So you can now get somebody whose core business is to make very high quality likenesses of people. And then, as far as art is concerned, because this is what we're talking about here, the sky is the limit. And you can start from somewhere, and everybody has to be a fool before they can be a master. But everybody can start from somewhere and they can develop from there. They've got the platform that allows them to do that. And once you start to be able to explore what you can do with figures, I think really you're then into truly into sculpture. And this isn't just a model, it's now a 3D sculpture, in the same way as the Attic sculptors in the 2nd century BC designed and built sculpture that could be admired from all angles. If you look at the Aphrodite of Knidos, you'll see precisely this. It was designed to be admired from all angles. And I think that is something that diorama and figure painting gives you. And it gives you it in spades.
Just quickly going back, John, where did you get the inspiration of just painting it black? Because I think that's fantastic. If you wanted the model to really be the focus, that, you know, the vehicle, what a great way. Just spray the figure black, because all it's there for is like a silhouette of what, you know, in the size of it. You know, you can like, your eyes can judge that on the size, and the figure is basically out the way, isn't it? Painting it black. Where'd you get that inspiration from?
I love ship museums, right? I don't build ships, but I love ship museums. And you go to these different ship museums, and they'll have, actually they're usually white, right? But or some, you know, it really doesn't matter. I just paint them black so that they're kind of out of the way, and it's just for scale. That's all I want to show. And so I call it it's the museum look, right? So they'll do that at a museum. There'll be it'll be a figure, and it's all in white, and they're standing there around the you know, where you load up the breech of a, you know, 16-inch gun on the USS Texas or something like that, or the Wisconsin, for scale. And that's exactly why they're there. It's just for scale. That's what gave me the idea.
I think also with the black, which is good as well, and it sort of leads into the creativity, it's neutral, so it doesn't tell a story either way, and it's sort of, if you're looking at it, would leave it to the person who's, you know, looking at the model for them to interpret. One, if you had a single one like yours, John, whereas a single figure, you'd probably go, oh, maybe it's for scale. But if you had a vehicle which was surrounded by multiple silhouettes, essentially, what's the story behind it? You know, you're not telling a story. You're focusing on the vehicle, but then go, oh, if, you know, who are these people, or what was their role within the vehicle? And I think it's just a slightly different way of storytelling. And that's, to be honest, because I'm not brilliant at painting figures. I'm pretty bad. I would probably go down John's line of going, I'm just going to paint them black, because actually I quite like that sort of uncertainty, you know, nuance of, how do I want to interpret it each time I look at it? If they're black, would I interpret it differently each time? Just sort of, for me, that's yeah.
As a shipbuilder though, Ben, I'm surprised you can't get photo etch ones figures.
You can get
only
very small.
Yeah, very tiny. Just do them as photo etch. You know what I mean?
I have used the small photo etch figures. I've got a Grash Bay diorama with a time traveling submarine, as someone reminded me, which is essentially a diorama of the Grash Bay refueling a submarine, or vice versa, in the South Atlantic in 1939. Though ironically, the submarine's from 1941. And if you look at certain points, or with eye, sort of get your eye down to the waterline, you can actually see figures, for example, on the smaller boats, on the top of the submarine, for example, waving flags, etc. To which, if you look from above, you can't see, because photo etch tends to be 2D, it doesn't be 3D. Whereas if you get down literally looking on the waterline, you'll see them. And a lot of people don't spot that until they're sort of crouching down. They're about to take their picture, and then they go, "Bloody hell, there's figures on it!" And yeah, so for me, I mean, I don't tend to paint them. I try to get pre-painted ones because they are so small at 1/350. But yeah, I would, if I was doing John style, I honestly would probably paint them black like John. I quite like that idea.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. It's cracking. I never thought of doing them black, and it's an easy way out, unless you're creating a diorama or a vignette of that with that build. Painting them black gives you scale, but also it's better than putting a ruler on the side, isn't it? This is 6 foot. Do you know what I mean? So that's a great idea. Jim, as a man who loves building planes, where's your take on pilots and ground crew and stuff? Is that the sort of thing you would paint up?
No.
No. Simple answer.
That's a very simple answer.
but look at it. But as a judge, when you used to judge, did you find it easier to judge seeing a plane or a vehicle with a pilot or a figure beside it? Did it enhance the model for you or not?
No, there's no enhancing a model when you're judging it. Okay? You don't. Okay. There's a push. That's a whole different story. For bases, for this kind of thing. But as a strictly aircraft judge, you're judging the aircraft. You're not judging the base. You're not judging figures. And a couple of years ago, we had a Storch and a revetment with no figures, but all kinds of gear. And some were saying, "No, he's trying to tell." No, he's not trying to tell a story. It's just an airplane and a revetment. We're not judging that. We're judging the aircraft. It's in an aircraft category. You judge the aircraft, plain and simple. Certain individual wanted his figures judged, and we went round and round. And I said, if you want your figures judged, then you enter it in the diorama or a vignette category. Okay. But I'm not trying to tell a story. Okay. Then put it in the regular category. Well, I want it all judged. Well, I don't know what to tell you. Pick something.
Something.
It's just one of those things. You can't have new endless categories for endless possibilities for endless entries. It just does not work. You got to draw the line somewhere, and it's unfortunate in the fact that, at least over here, and the last time I checked the IPMS rules, been a while, 5 figures and 2 or more figures constituted a diorama. Okay?
Yeah.
If it was under that, it was a vignette. Now, the diorama and vignette guys are like, no, that's not a proper way to define it. And it's like, well, I get it. It's like, it's in the eye of the beholder. We all know pornography when we see it, supposedly. Okay. Yeah. My mother-in-law thinks Victoria's Secret's pornography, so there you go.
Yeah.
But I get what they're saying. What's a diorama? Well, it's an airplane over here, and it's a fueler over here, and there's 3 guys having a card game by the fueler during downtime, and there's maintenance going on the aircraft, and there's just a big scene with multiple things going on. And a vignette is like singular snapshot in time. It's like one figure taking a lunch break on the assembly line of a plane that's got everything all opened up because it's moving down the line. Okay, but you can't just write a rule that says, well, the judge will put it where he wants it. They have to have certain specific hard rules, and that's why they come up with the numbers. It kind of sucks because it really doesn't accomplish the mission at the end of the day. But you got to look at it where IPMS is coming from, at least over here. They've got to have something that's quantifiable, that's numbers, that's this. Okay. Yeah, and figure paint. So Luke made the earlier was talking about you could have the F1 car all opened up, and then you could have the figure in it, and then everybody starts thinking, trying to figure out the story. Is the person getting the story across? And things like that. But when it comes time to look at that thing with a critical eye, let's say it is in a vignette category. Let's say it is the engineer in there, okay, or whatever he's doing, and this build is a 12 scale Tamiya FW14B with every bit of aftermarket added, turned wheels. I mean, the guys or gals throwing everything at it, done a spectacular job at all this mechanical detail that they're showing. And then, hey, I'm going to put a figure in it. And then they paint a figure in because they're a car builder, not a figure painter. They put the figure in there and it blows up. It's just like, you shouldn't have put the figure in there because it can ruin it. And that's the slippery slope you get down. If you're good at figure painting, by all means do it. But if you're gonna, and to our point, if you want to do I'm gonna say half-assed, but if you want to do a halfway decent figure, let's go the opposite positive way. A halfway decent figure, you put it by your entry and you put it in the contest, and it's just a regular aircraft. Yeah, just understand that figure is not going to be looked at. We're going to look at your aircraft. We're not going to look at the base or anything other than that. When you move off into aircraft vignette, now the quality of your work for everything, your groundwork, how does it blend into the model? Do the figures, are they at the same level of detail as your aircraft? Are they well executed? Do you have the bug eyes, or do you have nice blending in the shades from your shadows up to your highlights? All that gets looked at on top of your depth of your story. Okay, what is the story that you're trying to tell? And some stories are better than others. You could do an F-14 on the catapult, have everything built great, and you could have figures done great, and everything looks great. You can have, but what's the story? Oh, he's launching off the ship. Okay, that happens every 30 seconds on an aircraft carrier. It's no big deal. Now you've got the guy over here, or gal again. Let's say makes a plane come in for a landing. Okay, and it's getting ready to crash, and it's got the hook, and it's got damage, and there's smoke coming out of it, and they've been able to somehow convincingly do smoke or whatever, and they're coming in, and they take the. There was on the cover of one of the Air Modeler magazines. It was a Corsair, or it was all Panther, maybe. Anyway, come in, catches the wire, and he bounces. And I mean, now, which one's telling more of a story? Okay, well, it's up to interpretation. But for my money, it's the guy trying to catch the 3-wire, taking the barrier, because all the plane's suspended in air, and it's there's more going on. Okay, even though there's only one figure in it, because that's in the pilot, inside.
Yeah.
It's all those things melded together in a competition over here that the judges have to, as a team of 3, have to come to a consensus over, which one's gonna, be first, second, and third.
Yeah. Some good valuable points.
Yeah, and so building dioramas is, in my view, the pinnacle of scale modeling. If you can build good dioramas, you've cracked it, because it encompasses every single skill of a scale modeler, whether that be the vehicle itself, the aircraft, the figures, the groundwork, the accessories, everything in one place. So for me, it is the sort of creme de la creme, if you like, if it's done well. But building dioramas, and I've only built a few, one of the hardest things traditionally or historically has always been, to go back to Zinzan's point, getting figures that are in an appropriate pose or stance for what it is you're trying to depict. That has always been very, very difficult. And unless you're extremely skilled and you can resculpt 48, 35th scale figures in a realistic and convincing way. That's a skill set all by itself.
So you're not getting the Tamiya figure of the German guy going like and following.
It's just not appropriate.
Yeah, it's just
what has happened over the last 2-3 years is more and more the advent of 3D printed figures is now accessible to the mainstream. So therefore, having the correct pose and having the correct stance and everything else that fits what you're trying to say with the diorama is much easier. So therefore, you will see, I'm sure in years to come, much more of figures on bases, next to vehicles, next to aircraft. You'll see more people having a go at dioramas because it's more convincing. And with storytelling, you have to have a plan. Do you want to tell a specific story with your diorama or vignette, or do you want to create a scene that could then be interpreted by the viewer to be one of 1,000 things?
Snapshot in time.
Exactly that. So almost like taking a photograph of a snapshot in time, and then it's down to the person looking at that diorama or vignette to interpret what they think it is. Or are you trying to tell a very, very specific story? And that, if you can do that, I can't do it. I've not cracked it. But if you can tell a specific story that as soon as someone looks at it, they go, that's what's going on there.
Yeah.
If you can do that and you can do it to a decent standard, you've cracked it. But
Isn't
people
So
isn't that the Holy Grail then, basically?
For me, it is. If you can do that, then you've cracked it.
Yeah.
Because by what you've created, you can influence the way someone looks at it.
Yeah.
And the people that do it the best, I think, are people that build box dioramas.
Okay. Celtic
Because
West.
they're targeting the viewpoint of the person looking at it. You can only look at it in one way. And depending, if that was open, depending on which angle someone looks at it, potentially is going to influence their interpretation of it. But if you can focus someone's view through a small window of a particular thing or scene or whatever, if you can do that and get them to see what you can see, you cracked it.
This is what I mean by the stylized boundary of the sculpture. And the best sculptors are able to do this. They're able to allow that focus. And if you can do it in 3 dimensions, then you can do it from all directions as well. That's another point to make.
Yeah, but I think when you're looking at something from a 360 view, generally your interpretation or the interpretation of the viewer can be very, very different to someone else's. But what box dioramas do, and they're really good at it, the people that are good at it, is they focus the view so you can only look at that scene in one way, because there'll be a small window in a box. You can only look at it, and the lighting and the shadows and the highlights, everything is geared towards that viewpoint. And if they're good at it, and there's very few that are, but if they are very good at it, there's a great website, boxdioramas.com. Go and look at that. If they can do it, and the people on there can, it's quite a talent to be able to make someone else think. You might not even be there, but to make them see what you see.
I confess
that's a talent.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I'm not actually entirely familiar with, so I need to really go look at that. And Jim has something to say, so I'm going to stand by.
Okay. To both of your points, box dioramas can be, Shep Payne, he's the one that started it all. He did some very ingenious box dioramas with figures. But it doesn't have to be just that. Two of the most spectacular diorama I've ever seen in my life was an aircraft diorama, and it was a box diorama. And you looked into the viewing port, and the box is huge. It's like 4 or 5 feet tall, and you look into the little hole, and when you look into the hole, there is, and now this is the reason why it has to be a box diorama, because you can't do this in 3D, because it's a B-17 in mid-air with a 109 that's just slashed through it, broken the tail off, the pilot's flying out of the 109, and parts are suspended in mid-air. And you're doing this through the viewing port, trying to figure out how the hell there's 25 parts suspended in midair, and you can't figure out because you can't see it.
Yeah.
You're just like, or there was another gentleman, I think he's here local, there was a very famous painting of the Battle of Midway, and it's from the pilot's perspective and the Dauntless coming down on the carrier.
Oh,
he's
nice.
painting, and he recreated that as a box diorama. And you look in, and you're the pilot of the SBD. And the 48 scale Dauntless is right here, and the 1,250th scale aircraft carrier is down at the bottom in a little ocean with little tiny guys on it scrambling, and he's coming in. The flaps are deployed and everything, and you can see that he's got the carrier making the hard turn with the heavy turn wake and the whole bit, and it's just like you're just getting ready to drop it, and it just there's a lot of imagination out there. SMC we just had, now don't need to get into anything about that other than the fact that, there's a lot of beautiful painted dioramas because that's their jam. It's a figure paint contest. It's a contest exposition with a bunch of dioramas, and all those dioramas are going to be very well executed because the figures are very well executed. To Luke's point in the beginning, what can kill a diorama quicker than anything? You can have a great painted vehicle, whatever it is, but if the figures aren't done right, it's not, at that point it becomes non-convincing. And Celtic West had a great you were going to mention it, Moz.
It was. With figure painting, it takes time. Most won't want to put the time in for something.
And if you're going to do dioramas, you more than likely you're probably a pretty darn good figure painter, because that will make or break dioramas and vignettes quicker than anything. And usually, my last point notwithstanding, usually you're going to have figures in there telling that story 9 times out of 10. It doesn't have to be, but so you got to be convincing with it.
And
I think you're right.
I think I just quickly point out that the problem with a lot of figures is facial expression. Now you may say, but it's so small you wouldn't see. But if I was at Bugle Call 2 years ago. You can watch the video, because the highlight for me was a guy who done, I think it was Scott of the Antarctic, and he got the faces absolutely spot on, including the horror in the faces. I'm pretty sure that I've seen figures being painted like they were in cold, wet, miserable, so the face is very gaunt, But that's something that somebody brought up at the weekend, that when they see figures, it's very difficult to find figures to recreate something. You want to show that horror, but all you can really do is change your skin tone to show barbarism, I think the word he used. But other than that, you kind of a happy smiley one. But a lot of these figures haven't got smiles on, have they? Unless they're pilots doing a salute, that I've seen. It does take time, and there is an art and there is a skill, where because it's not weathering. You're building up layers to recreate flesh, and I think flesh is one of the hardest colors to get. Celtic West, he inspires everyone in our club, and he always puts a little bit of blue in his flesh color. He mixes it up. He always puts a little bit of blue in because our veins look blue, and so even naturally, you would. So he always puts a bit of blue in the mix. So you give that sort of what can I say? That shading sort of thing, So, but I think flesh is very difficult to get right.
And how many different tones of flesh are there and under different conditions? And,
yeah, well, you're not all one color over your face, you know.
Correct.
What I'm
saying is, you get the pasty white guy from certain northern European climates down in South Africa or down in northern Africa, and now you've got different shades of tanning going on. Okay, or then you have more native peoples too, like say Africa, and then different ethnic groups and tribes and colorations and across the planet. I mean, there's not only like 6 colors. I mean, there's 9 million colors, because there's all different shades and variations and tones that are exposed to different weathering conditions.
Yeah,
and to get it looking good is definitely a skill.
There's definitely an art to it, isn't there? Most definitely.
That's why
figures in a diorama can be the primary part rather than the vehicle subject they are supporting. Yeah, that's very true. But that's what I mean. If you put it in competition, you know, where would you put that to? If you were saying that, you know, I suppose it'd be under dioramas, wouldn't it? Basically, you wouldn't paint a figure and then put a model beside it to show the size, because what you basically do is paint the figure to the best of your ability and basically just spray the model beside it black, so it doesn't take away from the figure, I guess.
But you could do it. It could be classed as Art Nouveau now, you know, modernist, a modernist interpretation, do a figure beautifully and then paint a tank black.
But that all comes down to you've got to. So competitions have rules.
Yeah.
So whatever you're building needs to fit somewhere. So it's the responsibility of the builder to understand the rules and where that particular build will fit. If you're not entering it into a competition, you're building it purely and simply for yourself, then it's important. If you're going to go above and beyond just building a vehicle or building an aircraft or whatever, you have to kind of think about what it is you're looking to achieve. But with that build, so like where John's done the black figure next to his 222, John's done that purely to show the scale of the vehicle.
Correct.
So he's not building a vignette. He's not building a diorama. He's not trying to tell a story. What he's done is built a very good quality 222, and in order to show the viewer the scale, how big or small that particular vehicle is, he's put a figure next to it. But if he was going to turn that into a vignette or a diorama, then his focus shifts. You don't need a vehicle or an aircraft to construct a diorama.
Correct.
You can build a diorama with figures by themselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it depends on what you're trying to depict, on what you're trying to show. And the figures aren't necessarily just in a supporting role. The figures can be the absolute focus of that build.
Yeah.
You don't need a vehicle or whatever next to it. And then you look at things like, we've seen the advent over the last 5 years of things like wedge dioramas.
Yeah.
You know, where the vehicle is a very tiny, it's not even full. It's not the full vehicle. It's just a section of it with figures around it or on it or in it or whatever. It's still a diorama. It's just the vehicle is a backdrop almost for the figures. So it depends on what you're trying to achieve.
I think you're right, because I'm just relating to we got a scale modeler called Andy, and I think he won first prize at one of the scale model shows he went to. And I think if Celtic can back me up on this, he was in the Airfix magazine as well. They had a picture. He had a general service truck, one of the Airfix ones. I think it was 172nd. Oh no, it was a Katie actually. It was a very small Katie, and that was painted to the top left of the diorama. But then you also had medics around her body on a stretcher. And actually, you look more at the stretcher than you did at that truck. I don't think I've got the magazine on me. I think I've put it away now. I've filed it away. But yeah, Andy won first prize on that, because I think you were looking at the bloody soldier on the stretcher, and you had these people kneeling around him, trying to, you know, save his life. But the truck, but you know, but when you know, but when he was asked, when he put the description down, I'm sure he put Airfix 1/72 scale KT or 1/48 scale KT,
Mm.
and then, you know, and told the story, you know, medics, I think it was, or something like that. So yeah, that's a good shout.
It is literally, I think, if you're going above and beyond the, you know, the vehicle, the aircraft, the car, the truck, whatever, if you're trying to create a scene, diorama as we know them, or vignette, you really have to put a lot of thought into it. That's a very different thing to put in one or two figures next to a vehicle or aircraft. It's a completely different thing, because you're broaching on that sort of storytelling area, and to get that right is incredibly difficult.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All the elements have to be perfect. Yeah.
But putting one figure or two figures next to a vehicle or aircraft absolutely achieves what you're setting out to achieve, because it shows the scale of that vehicle. It shows the size of that vehicle. That's why a lot of armor builders will always create a groundwork base, particularly for tanks, because the hardest thing to do when modeling a tank is to depict the weight of that vehicle. It's the hardest thing in the world to do.
Yeah.
But you sink it into some mud or whatever, straight away you're creating that illusion of weight. And that's a difficult thing to do with armor. But that's why people do it.
Hey, Moz, can you put me on?
Put you on big screen.
I want to be on the big screen.
Yeah, there we go. I've maximized G.
So, to Luke's point, or you know, to any of our points, do you have to have a figure? No, we have armor, or not. We have figure dioramas and we have figure vignettes, you know, here at the Nationals. I'm going to show you something here out of Chef Payne's book, and this, you don't even need figures, you just need an idea, and you're going to get the story across.
Oh yeah.
What do you think's going on there?
Oh.
All you have to do
rolling in the clover, isn't it? Rolling in the clover.
See, that's the thing with dioramas and the story. That tells.
Sorry, Jim, I didn't get a good look there. Can you go again?
Okay.
That's clearly a mannequin leg that a farmer's stuck in a piece of hay and thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
Because it is a forced perspective box diorama, being in a box, as you can see there, you know.
Wrong one. Sorry, I've gone. Let me find you again. There you go.
Know, so that's going to be covered with the frame, like you can see in the top photo. You take the frame off and you see it, but you're specifically being focused in on the leg, and
the leg.
You know, so and that's the creativeness that you know behind a lot of that. It's not my jam. Okay, I'm not that creative. My thing is building three-dimensional objects, making them as real as possible. I can't do that with a three-dimensional person because I can't make them look realistic. It would take 40 years that I don't have left on this planet to learn how to paint figures well. Okay, so I stick to what I know. But that's, I mean, story, and with dioramas, with vignettes, the real, and it really plays heavy over here is the story. It's not just a technical exercise. It's one of the few classes and categories over here that you can go off out of the rule book, and you know the story is accounted for. Is the story convincing? You know, and such. Granted, it still has to be executed. You know,
and I think the good diorama builders, good vignette builders, good scene builders, they have a very, very good understanding before they even pick up a piece of plastic or whatever. They have a very good understanding of the psychology of the people that are going to be looking at it. So they know by adding certain elements or missing certain elements out, they have an understanding of how the viewer will perceive it. And a lot of it, even on a very basic level, put a nameplate on it and give it a name. That is one of the easiest ways to influence how someone perceives that particular build.
Giving it a title, the story a
So,
title.
for example, and this I can prove it because I built a diorama 4 years ago, maybe. So it's a World War One Mark I tank submerged into mud, rusted to buggery, and then a modern day female figure on her own with a camera held, photography camera held by her side. And then at the front of it is a cutaway section with a trench network with 2 World War One British infantry stood facing out of the diorama. But that bit is painted in grayscale. So in my head, what I was showing is in modern day France, people will take photographs of these rusted up, submerged old World War One type relics. Take photographs of them. But actually, if you think about what it was during World War One, that would have been an operational, very difficult to try and tell that story. But what was really easy, I put a nameplate on it and call it Ghosts, and everyone knows what it is.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't know if I hadn't called it Ghosts and put a nameplate on the front saying Ghosts. They wouldn't understand what I'm. And I've proven it because I've taken it to 4 shows without the nameplate, and everyone's like, "Well, what's that?"
So would you sort of say then, Luke?
No one even asks the question because they know what it is.
So would you say that the nameplate essentially has the same effect as the box? It forces a perspective in some way by putting a name on it.
Yeah, in some ways,
Yeah,
because most people will read something, then look at it and go, okay, I can see why it's called that.
You've created a bias in their head nearly when they're looking at something.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That's
and
it.
You can do that in a really simple way with a name, or if you're very good at it, create a box diorama, force their perspective, force their view, and you achieve the same thing. But that's a lot more difficult.
I wouldn't say bias. I'd say more of a directional sign.
You're guiding them. You're guiding them to what they're looking at. Yeah.
It's like that.
The most recent diorama I built, which is an IDF Yom Kippur theme. Well, the name of that is in Hebrew. Well, most people in the UK can't read Hebrew. So therefore, it doesn't guide them at all as to what it is. It's then down to their interpretation because of the poses of the figures and the 2 tanks and blah, blah, blah. They will interpret it in a certain way, which perhaps I would argue is the way that I didn't want to depict it and has no resemblance to what it's actually called.
Yeah. The box diorama uses a lot of the tricks that are also known in the 17th century Dutch see-through domestic setting paintings like Vermeer did. Yeah. Going back to that though, like I said, when I got that base to put the truck on off you, Luke, I just got me my Dymo and just printed off, letters, steel drives. And when people look at it, I'm sure they go, even if it's rusted out and looks everything, but it still drives. That just shows you, that those stollies will go on and on and on. That was what I was looking for with that one. And when you put that on there, hopefully that's what it gives that sort of perception. But again, it is definitely like that. It's I think
that will create a very different experience for the person viewing it.
Yeah.
Than if you put it on a black base with one figure in black like Johnston there next to the stalwart. At that point, all that figure's doing is showing the scale of the stalwart. You're not trying to tell a story. You're not trying to do anything with it. But by putting steel drives on it with no figure at all, you're guiding the viewer as to what it is you're trying to show.
Achieve. Yeah.
I think that's why you don't. It just dawned on me. I think that's why you don't see a lot of figures with aircraft models, is because are you trying to tell a story? Well, 9 times or more out of 10, you're really not. It's just a size comparison. Back to where when the armor guys were started adding a figure here and there to show size. It's not big over here. It's done occasionally, and you know, it's nice if the figure's done well, but it's not detrimental unless you're
And I think
something else with it, you know.
And I'm sure I'll get shot down in the chat. Excuse the pun. But I would argue that it's much more difficult to tell a story with an aircraft than it is with a ground vehicle.
Yeah.
Because most things that happen in that aircraft's mission, lifetime, whatever, happen at 30,000 feet.
Yeah.
So it's much more difficult to tell a story.
Yeah, there's an
aircraft builders tend, I would argue, are perhaps more technically proficient.
What was it? Is that what you're going to say?
Yeah, there's an element to this which Luke's absolutely right about, and it was a point made when we were in the Royal Navy, and there's an immediacy to fighting in an army situation because you see the face of the person that you kill. If you're
where the metal meets the meat, Zinzan.
Eh?
Where the metal meets the meat.
Yeah. Whereas if you're flying an aircraft or you're fighting a ship, your enemy may be 30 miles away, and the concentration in terms of perhaps aircraft scale modeling might perhaps be, and I'll suggest this, that it might perhaps be more of an engineering appreciation for the form and attempting to gain the most high fidelity representation of the form. You know, so it's like modeling with a slide rule, perhaps. And I only say that because, well, that's what I do. You know, I'm as far as figure painting is concerned, I'm right in the middle of the screen here, and I'm a total intruder here. You know, there's a degree of artistry within diorama and figure painting that I can appreciate, but I cannot hope to emulate, even in the smallest way. And it's an actual pleasure to listen to Luke speaking about this form that he understands very well. And the nearest I can get to it is looking at the Attic sculptures of the 2nd and 3rd century BC, some of which are an appreciation of the form, the disco forest, for example, and some of which you could argue are vignette or diorama, and I would point out the Lacoon group as that, because that does tell a story. And what you talk about happening to this day with plastic merely being the medium, and I think it was Alt 92 said this, so props to him for saying so, that it's no different today than it was 2,500 years ago. And it's the art of it. No wonder more and more people are doing it, because the medium that they can use has got so good recently. That's I can't say any more than that, really, to be honest with you. That's where I am with it.
Just I build planes predominantly, and I don't think I do dioramas. I just build the plane up, make it look worn or weathered, or I out the factory build, out the box build. But if I were going to, I think a lot of the planes that I build in 148, you couldn't really do much with it as a diorama anyway, unless it had a full engine inside where you can take off the panels and give it something to make it into a dial. So, like, this is being repaired, or that I think that's why you don't see a lot of dioramas with planes, because a lot of the planes we buy, especially 148 and even more so in 172nd, don't come with an engine or panels that open up.
You say that, Moz.
It depends on what, and again, it goes back to what you're trying to depict. So I built a couple of years ago. I built the Airfix Dakota DC-10, whatever you want to call it, as a 101st Airborne Transport aircraft on D-Day. And then I put around it a couple of vehicles, obviously all in 72nd scale, and I put some paratroopers loading onto the aircraft. So, and the pilots walking towards the aircraft. So that is a diorama because it's showing, although the aircraft is all buttoned up, there's no engine or anything, but it's showing that actually these people are getting on the aircraft to fly across the channel, jump out and do what they did on D-Day.
Yeah.
But I still don't think that's quite there. But what made it there is when I put a nameplate on it and called it Rendezvous with Destiny. And now everyone knows what it is.
Right.
Yeah.
They look at it and they know what it is. And even down to weathering an aircraft. So, say a 48 scale single prop World War II fighter. Even the weathering can tell a story if you're good at it.
Yeah, I think the best one I've seen was
But it's so open to interpretation, which isn't a bad thing. But it might not. You might not be telling the story to the viewer that you envisaged when you were building it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Ben?
No, I was just going to say, I think the best one I've seen of a diorama that was in 48 was at Telford, and I want to say it was the Battle of Britain Sig, and it sort of goes back to a very early point of, like Luke saying, when you don't really see ones with cockpits open, and this was of two Mark 1 Spitfires, both in 48, taking off and going off in a pair as from like a grass strip, so it's like undulating. Diorama's fairly big, about yayish big, and it was interesting because the cockpits were still slid back and open. So, and as the aircraft would one was still on the ground, tail up, and the other one had, bumped off the ground. The one that was coming off the ground, I don't know how they did it. If they scratch built it, I mean, it's about 2-3 years ago now, so it might not have been 3D printed. But they had managed to get the pilot to have their hand on the stick and then grab the canopy from behind and pulling it forward. And the fact that you had that contrasting with the second Spitfire, which was you could see the pilot fully focused and still fighting it as he's on the on the ground, because the rudder, for example, was Spitfires, it was over. Yeah. And like Luke says, the weathering was quite detailed because you had the smoke and not smoke, but like blackened of the exhaust, and they had it was a bit, I don't know if it was a trick with the light or not, because it certainly wasn't LEDs, but it would look like it was little spurts of flame were coming out, just how they had weathered it. But obviously, I think pastels of some form. And that told a story that the other one's off and away, but the one on the ground still struggling to, to break earth. And that always sticks out to me as a really good use of, figure, weathering, diorama, and storytelling. And I think they called it the Few because, again, Battle of Britain. But it was just a superb diorama from Telford, and it sticks in my mind now, 2-3 years later.
If you really want to get a mind bend going on, think about this. A diorama and a vignette, and there's always what's the definition of each? Well, a diorama tells a story, a vignette's a snapshot in time. Is generally accepted. But if you think about it, a diorama can be a snapshot in time, and a vignette can tell a story.
There is no hard or fast interpretation. There isn't, unless you're very, very good at it, and you're able to direct the viewer to what that is. And that's such a hard thing to do. There's very few people that can do it.
I agree.
It's almost impossible. But there are people out there that can do it. Shep Payne being one of the more famous ones. A guy, one of our admins, Adam Challenger, he built a few years ago now, he built a 48 scale A10. Now, he's a great aircraft modeler anyway. He built it in flight, so obviously had a pilot in it. But the way he told the story of what that A-10 was doing was he used, I think it was 100 scale BMP on a base, mounted the aircraft in flight, and had flames and smoke coming from the BMP. Now, that was a very, very clever way. It gave the illusion of height because the plane's in 48 scale, the BMP's tiny. So it gives that illusion that that aircraft's operating at a significant altitude. And it also told the story of what that aircraft is doing. It's destroying ground targets. That's what it's doing. It was really clever. It was really clever.
Yeah. Right, folks, I'm going to play the upcoming scale model videos, and after we're going to go into the actual where we can get figures and pilots from. So we'll jump this up. So if you want to go for a quick break, we'll do it with this video here. All right, we'll be back in. I think. Oh, I've done with it. There it is. There. We'll be back in about a minute and a half. So there you are. Those are the last of the model shows for this year, and the first one that came in for next year is the one in Wales, Mafra. They'll be back. I think Bolton's on the same day, but I've not got their poster yet. But if you do want your model show advertised on here, I think it's a good way of doing it, just to put it out there. I know there's only 4 in there, so it feels a bit long, but as soon as we get more in, it will basically, I think I go to these 18 a year, I think, model shows around here. As far north as, well, hopefully I would go to the Birmingham one again if it's on a Sunday. So, but yeah, if you have got any model shows, let us know. Moving on, coming to figures and pilots. I remember when Airfix released and I'm going to use Airfix because that's the example in my mind, obviously, there's not as criticism. But when they released the 124th Spitfire, it didn't come with a figure, it didn't come with a pilot. And that did cause a bit of a hoo-ha in the forums about this. Why produce such a beautiful plane with an engine, with wheels up, wheels down, and not put a pilot in? And then they produced a Mosquito, and that only came with one pilot, when it should have a pilot and a gunner. So there's sort of arguments that come about with this. And using an example of my favorite company, Apple, and Steve Jobs said once that Apple took a hammering when they removed the floppy drive from their computers and put in a CD-ROM, and they got under major criticism when they removed any way of taking data from your computer. So they got rid of the CD drive as well. Okay. and he said that the technology will always catch up. And I do wonder whether manufacturers will now see what's being produced aftermarket with 3D print resin, whether they will think twice now of wasting money in putting pilots and figures in their releases, knowing that you will get you can get the figures bulk from a reputable supplier, i.e. 3D Gizmo. What was it? Is it ASK? I think they do figures. You know, there's this new wave, and maybe instead of putting the technology and everything into designing figures and pilots into their model releases, whether this will be the time where they think, well, we'd have to spend, I don't know, 12 hours designing, developing a figure for this vehicle or this plane. We'll put a masking set in it instead. Thoughts on that? I think that's a good thing to ask. That as I said, they all knew that CD-ROMs will become phased out because USB memory cards were going to be the in thing of transferring data from one machine to another. So why put the money in, putting a CD-ROM in, and it also makes the product cheaper.
Oh yeah.
I'm just wondering whether that mentality kind of hits now. Maybe Airfix will see into the future. I know they put pilots in now. They even put a pilot in the Jaguar, and you can't even put them wheels up. In that Jaguar, it's wheels down. So
this is an argument of cost against quality, and the driver here, to some extent, might not. Let me try that with my teeth in. Sorry, might not be cost, but it may be quality. And there's an argument that I could make to say that the 3D printed figures will drive quality upwards, and the rising tide of quality will float all boats, so everything will get better as a result. That's the key for this. Cost is not the issue, because quality and cost are related. The more you pay, the better you get, as it is in modeling, so it is in so many other fields, in motor cars, in hi-fi, and all of those things. So
can I ask a question?
Go on, Barry.
Best to ask Luke this. Hi, everybody.
Sorry, Nigel.
Some of the best figures I've seen, Luke, are cast resin. Is cast resin better than 3D printing for figures?
I think,
or is it like
maybe historically yes, but I think we're at a point now where no, they're certainly comparable now, if not slightly better. And I think the problem with cast figures, and anyone can do this, go onto AliExpress, Temu. There's lots and lots of copies, cheap copies that potentially, by the time that mold is, getting to the end of it, they're not very good. They're not like the original cast resin figure that was produced by the sculptor. They're not like that. But if you now go and try and buy a good quality from the manufacturer and the sculptor cast resin, a 35th scale figure will probably cost you in excess of £25 for one figure.
I've got all those figures.
Quality's there, absolutely. But what's happening is, because everyone's going out and buying cheap copies, now the people that are very skilled in casting this stuff, sculpting it, they're not doing it anymore.
No,
because they're losing money, because everyone's buying cheap copies. And
it's the same.
Unfortunately, the 3D printing world, the design process is, I wouldn't say it's easier, because to design a figure, a good quality figure on CAD is difficult, because CAD was a very technical application. No, you could design a cog quite easily, but to put a facial expression on a sphere is quite difficult. It's a skill. but more and more prevalent now, and they don't have to waste their time making the mold, casting the resin, and everything else. They can print it. So I wouldn't say it's easier, but the process is more accessible. And therefore 3D printing will absolutely overtake cash resin. Because of that reason. It's more user friendly.
Yeah,
it's just the way it is. But for me, going back to Moz's point, I would rather not have a figure in the kit from a manufacturer. I would rather they spend their time on getting the aircraft right and getting the tank right, rather than devote some time and cost of manufacturing and design to what ultimately will be a substandard figure. Because there are people out there that just do figures, whether they be cast, 3D printed, doesn't matter. And if people are that bothered about putting a figure next to or in that particular subject, they're going to go after market anyway. They are, because of the quality. Back to Zinzan's point, the quality is so much higher and people are willing to pay for it. So I would rather the manufacturers such as Airfix, Tamiya, whoever, don't bother putting a figure in it, because most people aren't going to do it anyway, for the reasons we talked about earlier, because they can build the 1/9 scale Spitfire or whatever. They can do that really, really well, because that's their jam. That's their thing. But if they're trying to paint a 24 scale pilot to stand next to it or in it, that's not their thing. So it will detract away from the quality of the build. And if someone's that minded that they want a figure next to it, the likelihood is they will go aftermarket. They will.
What do you think?
Say that about Tamiya, but they often give you sitting and standing figures, don't they?
Yeah.
What scale are we talking here?
Absolutely gone into the realms of they're now doing live scans. So their figures are good for styrene figures, because they're live scanning real people. Whereas maybe 15, 20 years ago, that wasn't a thing.
No.
So you'd have like the generic pilot, wouldn't you, with his hands on his thighs and all that stuff. Well, that doesn't tell a story.
Ramsey's a second.
Go on, Barry. What were you saying?
What scales are we talking here? Because I'm predominantly 1/72nd, and all the aircraft have got pilots in them. However, I've got a couple of old Frog kits, and the aircrew in those are an absolute disaster. I could really use replacing with something more decent.
Yeah.
But you all seem to be talking to like 1/48th to 1/16th.
No, the diorama I built with 101st Airborne is 72nd scale, and the figures are 3D printed.
Yeah, you can get one. You can go down to 144 on these pilots now.
Yeah,
and I think my thought is we had 3D Gizmo on last week talking about his figures, and they're trying to protect their IP because of all the copies that are happening.
Yeah.
It's a very, and also if I had a 3D printer over there now, a resin one, would I go and buy a figure? Would I go, I'll go on this website here and buy a figure for my plane at 148? I'll go on to Coats 3D or another website like that, or search Google 148 Russian pilot or Ukrainian pilot or whatever pilot, and then I would download the file for 18 quid, and I could print it in just under 2 hours, and that pilot we then after cleaning it and everything, it will be in my plane quicker than I could get it posted to me 2 or 3 days down the line. So there's that as well.
Would it be as good quality of a print as you would get from 3D Gizmo?
I know. I wouldn't say. It's very difficult.
You've got a 3D printer, Moss?
Pardon?
Have you got a resin 3D printer?
I've got one coming on its way.
Oh, right.
Yeah, a company's got in contact with me, so I've been looking online. Anything that's free looks shit, but anything that you're paying 18 quid for, 15 quid even, they do look the bollocks.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but where have you seen it?
On Coats 3D.
Exactly. So it's been printed by the person that has designed the STL file, and part of their marketing is to show the printed item. But if you get your new 3D printer tomorrow or whatever,
Yeah.
full of resin, and you
Yeah.
put that STL file and send it to your printer and try and print it, I guarantee you it will not look like that picture.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I've got friends who are doing 3D printing now, and some of the stuff they're producing from downloaded files,
yeah,
looks
absolutely,
Yeah,
and it can be done, but you have to
phenomenal.
learn the printer.
Yeah.
And you have
Yeah.
to learn the settings.
It's
And
black.
3D Gizmo said it last week.
Sorry.
As much as, yes, you can print this stuff at home, you can do that. But there is a lot of expertise and a lot of time and a lot of learning.
Yeah.
You cannot just plug yet. I'm sure it will come, but you cannot just plug a USB stick into a printer and it's flawless every single time.
I wouldn't say it's flawless because, I understand that,
But
but
the figure you've seen for the STL file you buy will be flawless because they're marketing that STL file.
And they're probably using a £200,000 machine, whereas Moss will have a £500 machine.
but I'm not convinced by that argument because, like on Coats 3D, there's feedback. If you can look at the feedback. Somebody says printed fantastically first time. You can go through the feedback.
Yeah.
If they're so, but the ones that you have to pay the money for is top. But then once you've paid for that file, you can print as many as you want off.
Yeah.
So
I think the only way of knowing is to try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you in a couple of weeks' time, when you've had multiple failed prints of good quality STL files, you may have a different opinion.
I'd like you to speak to a few of the lads who are amateurs at this and how well
I do every day.
The Elegoo Saturn 4.
Yeah, but it's not about, as 3D Gizmo said last week, it's not about the machine. It's about learning how to use the machine.
Yeah.
For example, you can get a pot of LP Tamiya paint.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And an airbrush. Now,
yeah,
I don't want to sound conceited or big. What I could do with that tin of LP paint and an airbrush is very, very different to what someone could do if they've just bought the airbrush and they're using LP paint for the first time. You have to take the time to learn your medium.
Yeah.
And 3D printing is no different.
Okay.
And that's what you're paying for. That's why you go to 3D Gizmo, because he has spent an inordinate amount of hours learning his machine, learning the type of resin he uses, learning how long to cure it for, learning how to wash it, what to wash it with, and all these different factors. I'm pretty sure in 10 to 15 years that won't be an issue.
I think I'll get closer than that. You know, there was a guy at the weekend who I was talking to who prints with 3D prints. And he said, I said to him, I've got friends who've bought this Elegoo Saturn. He said, yeah, it's one of the most easiest machines to use.
I'm sure it is.
Levels, everything. But he does get
Jim,
go in.
In here. It's like Luke says, it's not the machine, it's the file, it's the software that you've bought. I bought the M1158 mine clearing trailer. Okay, I'm like, woohoo, $15. Oh hell yeah, I can just print it. My kid's got a printer, right? He's Mr. IT. He can do it all, right? Wrong. He gets the file. Now you get the file off of wherever we bought it from, 3D Culture, whatever. Then you've got to get the program, download the CITI box or something. I don't know what But then once now you have to support it. And there is an art to how to orientate your part on the build plate and then support it for the best possible outcome.
Yeah.
Now,
Isn't that in the file?
the bed trailer alone that holds the det cord charge that gets shot out the rocket. Okay, that came out. But the biggest part of the whole build or the whole kit, it was warped. I'm like, well, what the hell's going on? And all he did, he printed it straight and he put a bunch of supports on the bottom that were like maybe an eighth of an inch high or whatever, and it looked like dog, you know what? And I'm like, well, what's the? It's not the machine, it's not the file, it's the middleman, it's the user. Because this came unsupported and unorientated, now you as the end user have to figure out how are you going to orientate that for the best printing process. I don't know, Jack, you know what about printing, but there are those that do, and they say you have to angle it because of how the process works on printing. So there is so now you would think naturally I'll just print it flat. No, you got to angle it, and then you've got to figure out how all the details going to print on the inside of the trailer too. So now you got to support and think again. It's not just printing. How is it printing? How are these layers going? And then you've got to support all the nooks and crannies.
Not part of the file again.
Yeah.
Aren't the supports part of the file?
No, there were no supports in the file.
Depends. You can buy files that are pre-supported. So someone has taken that time in the file to add the supports in the right place, or by an unsupported file where you have to add the supports in yourself in CAD or whatever.
And that was my dilemma. Do I buy the AFV Club, not AFV Club, Hobby Fan resin kit that's been out of production for 20 years or more that you can't get anymore? And if you do see them on eBay, they're $250. Or do I buy the $15 one off of 3D Cults, let's say? Well, okay, I'm going to get the cheaper one, right? Well, now here, because it was unsupported, unfortunately. I mean, everything looks great on the drawings. It's just you got to figure out how to support all that, and there's a skill on
like with most things. Then,
crazy.
So like with most things, then we can argue that this is a game of nuance. It's not all about the machine.
Yes.
It's not all about the software. The truth lies somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Now let me throw another pebble in the pond. The machine will always have an impact.
Yeah.
It's the same as welding.
Not always.
I could give any of you the best welding
Not with
machine
3D printing.
but you may not be able to weld
They said that about
as good
record
as I
player.
can with a cheap welder.
Currently.
But when you keep practicing,
Yes.
the difference is welding is a totally manual operation. This is interpreting a machine. But I will say one thing: if you look at all my reviews that I've done of 3D printed resin, anything that's bigger than sort of that is always warped. Always. And I spoke to Tom at Anise, and he said it's very, very difficult to print large flat surfaces, even like a 24 scale car bumper, without it just going.
Of course. But that comes down to the skill of the person printing it and their knowledge. So what I'll say to either anyone watching or anyone in here that's going to be at Telford, come to our stand at Telford and look at some of the 3D printed models that Adam Challenger has 3D printed. They are phenomenal. However, it's taken him about 5 or 6 years to understand how to add supports, how to move supports, because you get the warped panels or whatever, what resin to use, what to use to wash that resin, what to use to cure it. That's nothing to do with it. I mean, he's got a very good quality machine now, but even when his machine was less quality, it wasn't the machine, it was the user of the machine. So some of the stuff he printed on a lesser quality machine, once he'd figured out what resin to use, how to wash it, how to cure it, how to support the file, despite buying supported files, once he figured that out, which took years, the stuff he was printing on what would be now considered an inferior machine was brilliant. he doesn't really get better results on a better machine because he's using all the same techniques. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, Nigel, you could paint something with a £15 cheap Chinese airbrush and it would be better than someone who's picked up a £300 airbrush but has never used an airbrush before.
Yeah.
It would, because it's the user of the technology. And 3D printing is no different currently.
I know a friend of mine
in
has
10 to 15 years, it won't fucking matter. You buy the best machine, you'll plug a USB stick in it or print it, it'll be flawless every single time.
I know a friend of mine had the old, what was it called? The old Type 3 printer where you had the cable going in the back.
Filament.
Yeah.
FDM they call that.
Yeah. He had one, and he was trying to do like mock-up parts for race engines. So and he was doing something for me, and it was like a sort of bracket about this big, and he could never get it to stick together. And he's an engineer, he can build race engines, but he could not sort that printer out. He could not work it out. And he gave me this thing, and it was like a bloody Weetabix, like a Weetabix, yeah, not a Weetabix, shredded wheat.
But it's like if I wanted an electrical socket fitted in my house, I'm going to pay an electrician to do that. I could probably do it, but I'm going to have to learn about it. It's not going to be as good as the person that has spent the last 20 years putting sockets in. Is it? It's not.
I did
the same as if that person's having a heart attack, I can fix that. But they wouldn't call an oncologist if they're having a heart attack, would they? It's pointless.
They had their head up their ass.
You know, it is a thing. And 3D printing is no different. It's no different. But I think it will come. I think it will come.
I'm just saying, I play devil's advocate here. I'm just telling you how, you know, I've got it here still. I bought, talk about FDM, this absolutely amazed me. I bought this Rode and a Dingo off 3D Gizmo on Sunday. This Rode, I thought it was resin because the light. I put the thing up. This is done with FDM. I'm going to say those are the lines on the back.
It's blurry.
It is blurry.
It's too blurry. If I go close,
you
see the lines are so tight together now. From a distance, you would not see. I thought this was. I said, "This must be, resin." He goes, "Oh no, this is FDM."
Yeah,
but he's been able to dial down on getting filament to look that fucking good.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe it because I said,
and that proves the point because that's
speed, temperature, it's everything with FDM, isn't it?
So if you went out tomorrow and bought the exact same machine, the exact same filament that he's used to do that, or PLA as it's known, the exact same software, and then you tried to print that, it wouldn't look like that.
No, I get that, but when it comes
to his expertise, that's his expertise.
But when I was, I said, I've got friends who've got this new Elegoo Saturn IV self-leveling and everything. Some of the figures they've bought online, Warhammer stuff, and printed it with hardly any experience. They've just set it up in the corner. They've bought all the equipment. They've watched YouTube videos. What they've produced, they apparently they put the software. There's a software called Slicer or something. Put it in, and then you click a button and it adds all the supports they need. Originally, they had some failures of prints, and that was because they didn't switch on the resin heater or something in it. There's supposed to be a heater in it. I
always have to monkey with
and getting the temperature on the resin right, but they're not getting the failures that they were getting originally. And they've had it cut the months, and some of the stuff that they have produced has been extraordinary.
I think
But
probably a
that
big,
again proves the point that when they first started, they had lots of print failures.
You know what I mean? This is taking a month to get it right. You know what I
I think
mean?
another thing to consider, Moss, is the person that's doing it. A
Yeah,
guy that's an engineer who goes out and buys himself a 3D printer is going to
yeah,
have a far better understanding of what's going on, what's
Yeah.
going wrong, you know,
Absolutely.
this, that, and the other, than a
Me.
doctor.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
Yeah.
you know, there are probably people out there that don't even realize you need support.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
Jim didn't.
I knew, I just didn't know where to put them.
yeah. But it's a lot of it's all automatic now. It uses AI. The software that they use it's to do with the software as well. You know, the cheap software is no good. You got to pay your money and get like there's £10 a month per particular software that they use. But they've all said though they would be lost if they had to design that part themselves. That's that they reckon the money is in the designing, and I got that impression from Dave because he said last week, and kudos to him for this. All of his files are off cloud, so he's got a computer that isn't even linked to the internet
Yeah.
to protect his IP. And like he said, somebody
And what
stole
did you also spend about half an hour talking about? Forget the design process. What did he spend about 30 minutes talking about?
Most of it was his process of mixing resins,
Type of resin, type of
resin,
tooling, how you clean it. All this stuff goes into it. And I think the misconception with 3D printing is that you can buy a 3D printer, having never used one before, buy a decent quality file, plug it in, print it, and it looks like the picture.
Yeah, but I'm not taking anything away from 3D Gizmo. I'm just saying that in the future, it will be a case of you'll buy the printer, have it in the corner, and instead of waiting for it to come in the post, you would pay the money and print. The only thing that's really, I think, I didn't realize until I looked online how expensive resin is, because sometimes you're doing a little figure and you're using twice the amount of resin just in the supports and the base of it to get it to print. You know, and as I said, you know, I haven't, you know, mine's coming in the next couple of weeks. It's allegedly it's a Hay Gears. They haven't got back to me. They asked me some details and stuff. They're going to send one out. They just wanted my address, and I've sent my address off. And as I was looking online, the ones that were free in the pictures look crap, and the rate and the feedback on them, the star value was quite low, but the ones that are around 18 to 20 quid look brilliant in the pictures, and their feedback represented what you had seen in the pictures. So, you know, but then again, are these people professional 3D printers as well? Like, you know, but as I said,
it'd be interesting to see how you get on with it.
It will be.
If I get listen, I struggle with that frigging Umbro FDM one that it just didn't work. And you know, and in the end I did get it to work, and I got a peg out of it. But by that time, but then again, the problem with that Humble printer, as I found out after I bought it, the issue was it was old technology. It was old technology rebadged as Humbrol. And when they were selling it for 189 quid, they were on Amazon for 89 quid because it was the Easy 3 one. Only difference was the badge on the front and another button. That was the difference. And that kind of put the kibosh on that Humbrol printer. And though when they sold it to me, they said, we're going to be sending you files and everything that you can print off. I never saw a single file on that website. And in fact, if you ask a lot of people, there's one in a model shop somewhere that's now bleached orange because it's been in the shop window. The box isn't red or white anymore. It's more like an orange or pinky color because it's been sun bleached. Nobody wants it. And that was a shame because if Humbrol really wanted to do something like that, they should have gone in with a big company and said, look, we want to develop something like this. That was the failure of it. They would double the price and just a rebadge of what was already on the market, and that's what destroyed it really. And to be honest, I was part of that problem, because I put the video up of the review struggling to get it to print because it wouldn't, even though it says it works on any operating system, I couldn't get it to work on Mac on Apple. And in the end, what they did was they sent me the software that was applicable to Apple, same software, but it was just for an Apple system. And I was able to print a peg off it and something else. I think it was like an ashtray or something. Oh no, it was a dish for my extra thin. But the comments were saying and linking to Amazon that you can get an orange coloured one called Easy Thread for 79-89 quid. And that's what destroyed that product, I think. And I don't feel bad, because I just I bought it with my own money, and they give me the money back and told me to keep the product and try and make it work, and I did. But in the end, what did I do with it? I had a plane I needed to put decals on. It was the right height to put the plane on top and put the decals on. So it ended up being a stand. A plane stand for putting me decals on, because it was perfectly flat and you had a hole in the middle. So it was great for that. I've still got it here. But the difference between resin and FDM is amazing. You know,
I am concerned about one thing, Moss. You keep pointing over there to your left. I don't think you should have that 3D printer in the same room as you, because I think they can give off some pretty nasty fumes.
Actually,
I've heard that you should have an extractor on them and that.
No, what's to the left of me is I got sent
very, very toxic resin.
Yeah. No, what I got sent was this is the Pixie Algo laser, which is a laser cutter.
Oh, right.
Is a thing. They've sent me that to review. So, but the 3D printers, apparently, I've just got to sign a contract and tell them what I'm going to do. So, but yeah, 3D printing isn't. You've got to be careful with 3D printing. Hence, what I'll probably do is put it in my conservatory. That's where I'm going to 3D print, in the conservatory. And also our windows have got a UV thing on it. They've got like a coating to stop the UV coming through. So, which is a big thing. You can't have UV, can you, on a 3D print, because it uses UV to cure the resin, I believe.
That's another thing to consider, you see, Moss. Nearly every bit of 3D printed resin I've had lately has had uncured resin on it.
Yeah.
You know, with the exception of one, which is ITA inside the armor. The first set I got off him had a lot of unprinted resin on it, but he replaced it. And every other thing I've got from him has been good. But even the AirScale stuff I've had has had unprinted resin on it, and uncured, and it's like a really shiny, sticky substance. I had some stuff from a company that remained nameless. I had to put it in the window for weeks. It was like rubber. So uncured, it was awful.
Well, it does make you wonder, because the idea is that you wash it, then you cure it in a thing, and it should be cured. But I think this is what I was saying. Somebody broke one of the figures, didn't they? They had a 1/8 figure, and as they were painting it, they moved it, and the leg snapped off. And he didn't think nothing of it. He thought, I better glue this back on. And as he glued it back on, he noticed he had a bit of the resin on his hand, and it caused a burn or something. So, yeah. But
the other thing with it, this is going to be for Luke to answer again. What about paint adhesion? What's it like for paint adhesion?
In my limited experience, if it's good quality resin, then it's not a problem.
Mr. Surfacer, and then go from there.
Primer.
Mr. Surfacer, yeah.
But yeah, I use Mr. Surfacer. I also use UMP, which is Stynal Res.
Yeah.
Well, the clue's in the title of Stynal Res.
Yeah.
It's designed to work on styrene, resin, and nylon. Stynal Res.
But it's still not as good as Mr. Surfacer.
Depends. If you want to use acrylic, because there are people that can't use lacquer stuff.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
So if you want to use an acrylic, use Stynel Res. If you can use lacquer, acrylic is never going to be as good as lacquer.
Yeah.
It's just not in any paint form, and primer's no different. So I predominantly paint in lacquer anyway. But yeah, it is what it is. But avoid Vallejo primer with anything.
It's not primer. It's like crisp packet material, isn't it? You just peel it off afterwards.
Yeah, just peels off. Yeah.
Yuck.
Microfiller primers
Yeah.
well with resin.
Right.
I've heard. I've not used it. I have one resin kit. I have an alpha model kit.
The last full resin kit I built was the Saxon, the British Army Saxon.
That was cast
That
resin.
was all 3D printed resin.
Oh,
Yeah.
And I primed that in Mr. Surfacer, no issues whatsoever.
Okay, good.
Yeah, the Aerocraft
Microfiller, you got to sand.
who I did was I primed that in Mr. Surfacer, so that was no trouble.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty universal. Properly cured, good quality resin, really, from a painting point of view, isn't any different to styrene. You can use the same paint. It's fine. The problem comes where it's not cured properly.
Yeah.
That's your biggest issue.
I was advised, Mr. Surfacer 500, mix it 50-50, and then blow it in gently to get rid of most lines on 3D print.
But with a good quality print, you won't have lines.
That 500 is thick, man.
Don't ever let anyone tell you what to thin Mr. Surfacer ratio, Moss.
Okay.
Because Mr. Surfacer goes off and it thickens with age.
Okay.
So you might go and buy a brand new bottle of 500 and thin it 50-50. 6 months' time, it'll be too thick. So,
well, I mean by lines, I've got. If I show you this one,
quality print, 3D print resin we're talking about. If you've got a good quality print, obviously, there will be layer lines because that's the process of how it's printed.
Right.
However, if it's good quality, those layer lines will be invisible to the naked eye.
Yeah, it's not focusing, Moss.
It's not focusing. But yeah, if you look inside, it's got all the detail in it and everything. Is it focusing now?
Yeah. You can see the outline.
Kind of. Yeah, it's got all the detail in. So it's amazing, actually. Come on, focus.
32nd scale.
This one's 35th, 1/35th scale. But I was so impressed with it. I bought it, so I'm going to do it and put it on this road. That's the idea. But yeah, I was very, the steering wheel and the seats are all there. It's a fantastic bit of kit. But I can, it's definitely something that's opened my eyes. Because, like I said, a lot of people these days, and I think Jim's absolutely correct. It's not nobody really wants to build anymore; they just want to paint. And I think 3D. I think 3D.
Disagree with that. Absolutely, 100%.
You disagree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Me personally.
Yeah. So, it's a personal thing. Yeah.
Well, I've just done that M1128, and in there I've hinted quite a few times in the build that I'll send it to Luke to paint. I don't want to paint it. I don't enjoy painting vehicles and weathering and all that. I don't enjoy it, and I'm crap at it.
But I guess all I was saying, Nige, and I agree. I want to get that kit, and I think the older guys are probably more into building because that's what they've done all their lives. They've built model kits.
Yeah.
My comments are more to the younger generations of this hobby. They're not into that because you hear in certain segments of the hobby. Now, one of the fun part, painting and weathering. I just want to get to the paint. Who cares if there's a seam there? I want to get to the paint. I want to get to the paint. It's all about
I want to get rid of that seam.
And they will spend 3 to 5 to 6 months on paint schemes and layering and weathering and textures and tonal variations and all this stuff, and to get the most realistic looking paint and weathering and environmental effects and all this stuff. But who cares if the wheel's crooked? Who cares if there's a seam going down the leading edge of the wing? Who cares if there's
I know.
glue? You know, because they don't care. And that's why I'm saying, I think ultimately, if the 3D printing, and it probably will get there, where the person can hit the print button and all they have to do is put 5 pieces together, that's the quicker they can get onto the fun part. And it's becoming the International Painters and sometimes Modeling Society. It just is. It's just the way it's going. You know, it's not neither good nor bad. It's just
it's like, I don't get these people. Oh my God, I've just bought a 35th scale tank and the barrel's in 2 halves. Oh, I got to glue it together. I mean, are you a modeler?
Right.
You know,
You're an assembler. You're an assembler, Nige.
I was thinking about this today.
But I think that's absolutely the. I'm a massive advocate for 3D printing.
Yeah.
I think it opens up a whole world of possibilities. And if you know what you're doing, or you know someone that knows what they're doing,
I do.
It's almost limitless. If you can imagine something, it can be printed. It can be designed and printed in this thing that we do.
Yeah.
But that comes and will come over the next 20 years, maybe, at a cost, because that old school set of capabilities as a modeler, filling, sanding, getting rid of seams, getting rid of ejection pin marks, and all that stuff will be lost.
I enjoy that.
Because, yeah, you do.
Yeah.
So do I.
People who are 14, 15 now, you know what they enjoy? CAD.
CAD.
They're no fun.
So, but that's the same as, isn't it?
I don't want to spend 3 months building this model when I can spend 3 days building this model and get to the fun part. Their fun part, their jam is the painting and the weathering.
I'd rather spend
40 years ago, people were doing hand signals in cars and reading maps and all that stuff. Well, we don't do that now, do we? We use sat nav. We've got power steering, indicators, cruise control. All these. So it's just an evolution.
Excuse me, Luke. My Fiat doesn't have power steering or cruise control. It doesn't even have a radio.
Yours doesn't. So how many people go out by car? Not many.
The steering wheel's on the wrong side anyway. So
I have to say that my Velocipede does not have a cruise control.
No.
No, but how many young people, for example, now under the age of 30,
Neither does
who
Mike.
handed them an A to Z or an ordnance survey map and said, get from one end of the country to the other using the map? They wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, there is a downside to that.
But then you give a sat nav to an 80-year-old person and they wouldn't know how that works either.
No.
I've used sat navs to go places, and someone else. So I went to a model show today. They say, "Where was that?" I don't know. It was north.
Yeah, but do you know?
Because I just take the next left, take the next right, stay on the road for 3 miles. I don't know where I've been. Whereas if
but do you need to know?
No.
Exactly.
But it's a bit sort of mind numbing, isn't it? You're just following some electronic box telling you to take the next left and go right.
But with any evolution of technology, there will always be winners and losers.
Yeah.
Always. And I can speak from personal experience, if you like. You call the emergency services now, automatically through technology, your address or the location of the incident, whatever it may be, will automatically be populated into a navigation system in whichever vehicle is going to respond to that emergency. 15 years ago, whoever is driving that vehicle would need to look at a map.
Yeah.
So therefore, you've increased the speed of the response. You've taken minutes and minutes and minutes off that process. Therefore, the vehicle, whichever vehicle it may be, police, fire, ambulance, doesn't matter, will arrive on scene way quicker than it would have 15 years ago. And guess what? That saves lives. But give a map to someone and say, negotiate your way to that location. across the whole of the West Midlands. You could be going from one end to the other. You don't know the area. They're not going to have a clue. So they've lost the skill of map reading, but the trade-off is that vehicle is going to arrive fairly accurately and fairly quickly. So it's a trade-off, isn't it? Yes, the map reading has been lost, but actually the benefit outweighs the risk of losing the ability to read a map.
There is a thing in business and in technical businesses that they call de-skilling.
Yeah.
And this is an issue.
Yeah.
Because who knows how to build something? Who knows how to make something? Well, there's a difference between using, a CAD supported lathe to Nigel standing in front of a turret lathe and setting it up.
Yeah.
There's a huge
absolutely.
You know,
but do we want to stay in an age where
we're not necessarily leaving that age
to be able to set that up, or do we embrace the technology that is available to us and will be available to us over the next 2 or 3 decades?
This isn't a treatise for me anyway, from my side, against embracing technology. That it's not that at all.
Yeah, you can't have both, can you?
Yeah, it's about the knowledge that goes behind, the end result. Knowledge of the skill to be able to do something. Anyone, anywhere in the world needs people who can make things.
I'll give you a really good example. I may have told you this before. I know I've used this example a lot. I used to work with a graduate engineer who was very, very clever. He was great. And he was customizing a Mini, and he wanted to make a throttle body. So he had a square piece of aluminium, and he wanted to bore a 2-inch hole. He went, how will I do that? This guy has come through university and he's got a degree in engineering. On a lathe. How? Just stick it in the lathe and clock it up and turn a bore. How am I going to put a square block in a 3-jaw chuck?
Right.
You need a 4-jaw chuck. Hey, you can get a 4-jaw chuck? Yeah. You can get a 6-jaw chuck.
Yeah.
All right. So will that like center it up itself, or do I have to clock it? Well, you get
that's the point.
Bloody hell, you're amazing. I'm like, you've got a fucking degree. Come on.
The elements of his skills have got.
They taught you.
Right.
NASA put men on the moon 55 plus years ago with engineers using slide rules, and they can't do it today. They're having to relearn it.
I made this precise point in a piece I wrote about the XB70 about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
That the bench engineers and the bench noggins who designed the XB70 used the slide rule as their ready reckoning tool, and you couldn't have done it better today with all of the computers that they have access to. They got those sums right using a slide rule. Jim's absolutely correct. That it doesn't mean that we're going to be Luddites and say, no, we don't want the new technology. We do, and they make things easier. Map reading is made easier with SatNav and all that. But fundamentally, in terms of model building, those skills are things that it's worth learning. It's worth taking the time. As I said earlier, everybody starts as a fool, but you have to be a fool before you can be a master. And you step into that unknown territory, which is something new to you, and you have a go, and then you learn it and you get better at it. That's what we do this for. It's what I do this for. That's what moves me in this regard. And he wants to speak again. I'm going to let him.
All I was going to say is you've got Michelangelo chisels out David, and he's sitting there pointing in multiple directions. But the thing is, you could do the same thing. A guy can come on his computer, gal can come on their computer, design something, hit the print button. Okay. The person, and this gets into model building, scratch building versus 3D printing and scratching on a computer. It's one-dimensional. You're designing one thing in one tool and hitting one print button, whereas You're using your hands. You're using spatial orientations. I've got to get this point, or however called it, the statue. I have to have everything dimensionally right. You know, I can't have things too big or things too small. You know, and it's just a different thing. So when you're going to use these 3D tools, and I think the main point is the why. Why is you can use a slide rule, you understand, because you're using your computer and using the slide rule to build this rocket. And people don't do that anymore. They use the computer to do the thinking, and they throw the ideas into the computer to see if it's going to work. Okay, they don't, without the understanding of what all goes behind it. Okay.
Then you say that along from there came the vernier, and I used verniers for years and years and years at Rolls-Royce. And now, instead of a 6-inch vernier, I use a digital caliper. I can just close it, read it. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't need to look at the vernier. The error factor is gone. You don't need to use a slide rule. And if the guys back in the 50s had digital verniers and stuff,
They would have used them.
They would have used them. It would have made no difference.
Technology moves on.
The skills they had, and it's unwritten stuff.
Yeah.
Because everything today is all process and CAD and everything else. It's you put a program on a machine and it produces that thing. And if you put the feed too fast, it will break it, bend it, wear the tool and out, whatever. It will just keep doing the wrong thing. A manual operator will not do that.
Right, folks. It's 2 minutes past 10. I think we've had a really good discussion tonight. So the guy who
rubbish.
So the guy who you've only been on 10 minutes, Nigel.
Rubbish.
And
here's a figure.
With the Ford badge on it, the good one, a Jaguar badge.
Yeah.
Anyways, thanks to the guy who said, "Why don't you talk about pilots and figures tonight?" That was a good question. So we've gone into quite a bit there. Just quickly, somebody asked where would be the best place to buy these figures and pilots from in 3D. I think it's wherever go looking online.
Google.
There's so many companies out there that does it. I can recommend 3D Gizmo, ASK.
I don't think ASK does figures.
I thought they did.
I don't think they do. Teacher does lots and lots of resin, but I don't think he does figures.
Is it Quanta Studios only do 3D resin figures?
I think Quanta Studios have started.
Yeah. ResKit. Sorry, ResKit is the figure, people. So there's
a bunch out there.
There's loads out there.
Yeah.
If you're in the UK, go look at Hannants.
Yeah.
Go look at Hannants, see what's available, and then go from there.
Yeah, there's loads of places. And as I said, maybe it's time, like I was saying, like ICM is another company. They don't put a figure in their Spitfire, but they give you extras, and they probably spent more time on the model than just by chucking in or looking at which figure is going to fit. So, but yeah, well, thanks everyone for joining us. Just quickly on the banner there, I'll put you through again. Jadlam on the Road Group Build 2025. Go on their website, pick up one of their cheap starter sets from Airfix. Go away and build. As admissions are open till today. Opens today. It closes on the 3rd November, and the winners will be announced the 7th, which is that the Friday before Telford? Is it, or is it on Telford's?
Telford, isn't it?
8th and 9th, so it'll be on the Friday before Telford, so there'll be winners then. So I said I'll mention it. Anyway, folks, it's been really good tonight. Really enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it too. We will see you next Monday, because it will be our pre-Telford Airfix and Chill. I am going to be in Telford from Friday because I'm there all weekend. If anything happens on the week, or if anybody announces, like Ravel or ICM or somebody announces something before Telford, or we'll do a lunchtime chat. I've got no idea if anything's going to be released. I know in previous years, vintage classics have come out on a Friday from Airfix. I think we've had Dale on an Airfix and Chill on a Friday as well. I think it was the ME410 was announced on that Friday, which
I'm guessing Revell are bound to launch their Meteor, aren't they, for Telford?
I think that's on the cards. I think Eddard have got some stuff. I know they mentioned this brand new hybrid system they're bringing in 1/32 scale. I think it's a Spitfire, and I think is it Hurricane or something that they're releasing. Hybrid, yeah. Basically, it's a mixture of plastic and 3D print. So the fuselage and the wheel and the wings are injection, but like instead of having to build up the undercarriage on a 32nd scale plane, it comes as one piece 3D printed. So all you got to do is basically glue it in.
To be very, very careful of there, guys. Whoever's watching, I've got the air scale plane here, Captain Defiant, and we had that really hot summer, didn't we? And somebody built their air scale Defiant, and the undercarriage went because of it.
Really?
So Peter has reacted and remade the undercarriage in a different kind of resin.
Yeah.
So bear that in mind. And the other thing to bear in mind with 3D printed resin, his next release is a Typhoon in 1/32 scale.
Really? Okay.
Moved away from 3D printing for the main fuselage and wings, and he's using injection molded plastic. There's a reason for that.
Fair enough. But yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, and they're releasing these 3D printed parts. They call it the Brassin hybrid system. So there'll probably be something there at Telford about that. But as I said, there'll be things happening at Telford anyway. But if there will be an Airfix and chill that Friday, I'll let you know in the morning. I say I'm not allowed in till 3 o'clock anyway, but I will be in the area. So if I do a live stream, I'll be in my van outside.
How can you go up on Friday, Moss?
Because I got to set up on Friday.
You got to set up?
Yeah, clubs can set up on a Friday.
Oh, you're going with your club?
Yeah, going with the club. Yeah, going up with the club. So, anyways, right, folks, that's it. We're going to call it quits. We'll see you next Monday, pre-Telford. Take care, everyone, and good night. Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.